There are new signs that Israel's war with Hamas is becoming a political problem for President Biden, particularly among minority and younger voters. A recent NBC News poll found just 15% of voters under the age of 35 approve of the president's handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict. 70% disapprove. As the Wall Street Journal reports, quote, for some on the left, the extent of President Biden's support for Israel in its conflict with Hamas and his recent backing of the border policy overhaul, including his push for restricting asylum, might be too much to overcome. Let's bring in NewsNation chief Washington anchor Leland Vittert, host of On Balance. Leland, let's start with Israel and Hamas. How much of a liability is the Israel war becoming for President Biden in his reelection hopes?
Well, a lot less of one thanks to the Republicans, because it appears as though they gave President Biden two get out of jail free cards, one on the border Israel-Ukraine bill, and two, as Tom Dempsey reported, when the standalone Israel aid bill that Republicans were going to try to put through to corner President Biden on just this issue, it failed in the House thanks to Republican votes. So there you go. The Republicans gave President Biden multiple gifts yesterday on this. So it may not be a huge issue for him. The real threat to President Biden when it comes to young voters and progressives isn't they vote for somebody else. It's that they stay home. And I think that's why you're seeing President Biden and his team so fired up, if you will, and forcing the issue of Donald Trump so early, because that's what they think will motivate those voters who may not necessarily like what President Biden has done or is doing, but will say, at least I'm better than Donald Trump on these issues, to motivate those young voters.
Yeah, so is that the likelihood of what happens? You know, how will that manifest? They'll likely just stay home. There's no way that Trump gets those progressive votes come November?
If you're somebody who's not going to vote for Joe Biden because of his support for Israel, you're not going to vote for Donald Trump. If you're somebody who's not going to vote for Joe Biden because somehow he's getting tough on the border between now and November, you're not going to vote for Donald Trump. Back during the 2016 election, there was this unicorn voter that we used to look for. Somebody who was a Bernie Sanders supporter in the Democratic primary and then would tell you, well, if Bernie doesn't get it, I'm going for Trump. Those are sort of the destroyers, if you will. The people who are just fed up with Washington and want somebody to come in and take a sledgehammer to anything. Those aren't the kinds of voters we're talking about in these polls.
And back to the Middle East, I mean, is the Biden campaign banking on a major ceasefire deal to get those voters back? Is he shifting the focus to former President Trump and other issues instead? How do you read things?
Certainly trying hard for a ceasefire deal. We have Anthony Blinken over on his upteenth zillion trip to the Middle East running around. Interesting to note that there are some long knives in Washington out for Anthony Blinken. I don't know if that's part of the progressive wing trying to put more pressure on him, to put more pressure on Israel. Blinken's known to be somewhat of a supporter of Israel. I think the question for President Biden is one of timing. It seems like an immediate issue right now, but it is a long time between now and November, an eternity in American politics. You could imagine Israel having another few months, say, till the conventions, to wrap things up. And then all of a sudden, the Democratic Party fully shifts into Donald Trump attack mode. And there you go. The focus is now on Donald Trump. President Biden can say, look, you know, we're going to work on Israel. We're going to get a two-state solution. There was a lot of reporting that the Biden administration may unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state as a way to give an olive branch to Muslim voters and young voters, especially in places like Michigan and Georgia.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of progressives are coming forward and saying President Biden has lost my trust. When it comes to that frayed trust, how important is this specific group to his? Does he have to win progressives in order to clinch the White House again in November?
It would be very difficult for President Biden to win the White House without winning progressives overwhelmingly, and more importantly than winning them, having them turn out. The fear is not that they vote for somebody else with progressives, it's they don't turn out. Suburban women is the other key group that's a swing group that's going to either vote for Donald Trump or for Joe Biden. They switched in 2020. And the third group would be blacks. We're following black male support traditionally since 1968, since the Voting Rights Act. Democrats have gotten about 85% as an average of the black male vote. That now for President Biden is polling in the high 50s or low 60s in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. suddenly become unwinnable for a Democrat if President Biden's numbers with African-American males stay at that number.
Yeah, and we'll see how things change in the coming days. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.